Hey guys, welcome back. This week I'm super excited to share with you a little snippet of Lazy Glass's workshop. He makes a beautiful dragon on a small scale. I can't wait to share it with you guys. We have a really exciting workshop coming up with Simone Cristani, a master Italian glassblower, is going to be teaching live online coming up really soon. There's a link in the description, and this is a once in a lifetime opportunity to really connect with a glassblower from Murano and learn those techniques live. I also want to thank our sponsor, Mountain Glass Arts. Thank you guys so much for your continued support of helping educate the community and helping bring in new people into the industry. One thing I really love about Mountain Glass is the customer service. Whenever I have a question about something that I need or I need a part, I can call them and they'll just help me understand what I need and give me the part. Anyway, you guys, I really hope you enjoy the video. I can't wait to see you soon and check out some Lazy Glass stuff.
Thank you for joining us and welcome. So right now, while y'all comment what you're doing, I'm gonna create the body for a dragon sculpture that I'm gonna do. I'm gonna make this one slightly bigger than what your average Turk pearl for me would be, but slightly smaller than what an average pendant would be, so maybe kind of like a charm. This is something that would go on top of a banger. So essentially what I'm starting with is going to be kind of just a oval shape, like a jelly bean kind of shape, and the part connected to my punty is going to end up being the tail, and this end is going to end up being the upper body, head, arms, legs kind of thing. Okay, so I'm gonna kind of streak across the belly from the top to the bottom, leaving a little bit of this white behind. And I kind of want to glob that white up at the end because I want that belly to be a little bit fatter. And then when I go to pull the body, this color will be part of that belly still. So I'm gonna now heat this all up, and I'm going to pull kind of mostly this tail area out, but just by keeping this whole thing hot, I'm gonna focus most of the heat on what I was gonna make the tail, but I wanna keep this whole thing hot so it does kind of stretch a little bit with me. Get that hot and essentially pull. There you go. Keep heating that spot. You want to really heat like more like the bottom of the belly rather than the actual tail, because you don't want your tail to necessarily curve. You're trying to curve the whole underside of that belly, almost creating like a banana shape with it. And you can kind of imagine now this is the belly right here, and the legs are going to go there, and the arms are going to go there, and the wings are going to come out the back. I'm gonna leave a little bit right here for the neck. I'm gonna leave a little bit on there. Let that cool down just a little bit and kind of pull that neck, elongating it a little bit. All right, so now I'm gonna go ahead and add the legs onto it. And that's gonna start with 2 beads symmetrically placed on each side, kind of like lower, slightly covering up some of that white belly. You can see where I kind of overlapped it into the white just a little bit. And I kind of want to use that as a marker for my next bead. It's like, okay, I can see I placed it that far into the white. Now I'm gonna go ahead and do the same thing with the other side. Get a similar size bead over here. And heat that little bad boy up. So those are gonna be the hips. Now we're gonna essentially create kind of thick little thighs that are gonna come forward, melted in nice and solid. You want those to be one unified piece of glass. You want everything to basically be one unified piece of glass at all times, and that comes with every weld all the way down the board. We're gonna add a little thigh here, a little thigh meat. Melt that in. That's kind of in the shape I want already, so I'm not gonna pull it too much. What's your preferred torch for mini sculptures? Okay, that's a good question. I use the Bethlehem Champion. Bethlehems are really good on small, thin stringers, and you don't have to melt the glass extremely quickly with miniature work. It's more about having a controlled environment to melt it almost more slowed and more controlled. So GTTs will kind of zap that glass and melt it instantaneously, and you'll lose a lot of detail. The Bethlehems aren't quite as quick to melt the glass, but they'll retain detail while you're directly applying heat. It's really just the difference in pre-mix, surface mix, and the difference in having such a high velocity, punchy flame. The Bethlehems are a little more friendly, but also the key to it all is having this little miniature Smith Mini. I use a different tip. It's a Griffin Tools tip with like a pick welded to the end that faces outward, and I can just heat, pick. It's also, I think, like a 5-port, so it doesn't get quite as hot. But if you're trying to do seals on rigs and seals on any kind of like hollow or just welding shit quickly together, that Hornet tip is really the way to go. All right, so now I'm gonna essentially create the calf, or like kind of the back of the leg that kind of goes back. This would be the calf. And I'm gonna angle it back. And I'm really just attaching onto the back of that thigh that I made, and then just pulling it kind of back into a kind of calf shape. I might need a little bit more on that one. All right, and then on the front of that, we're gonna put the feet. And right now, I'm not gonna actually sculpt the feet until the end, but I'm gonna put a nice big glob of clear on the, or not clear, of color on the end of that, so that way I can get this prepped for feet later. Melting them forward and letting gravity pull them is always going to be less stressful on the glass than trying to force them forward into the position that you want it to be in. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and go to the arms, or excuse me, the wings. I'm going to go ahead and get the wings on there. So for the wings, I'm going to apply like a pretty good amount of color to it. And I'm going to try and actually bead it up, not on, like I'm not trying to put a mound or like a bead on the back. I'm really trying to attach it to the back and then have almost this like polyp kind of like balloon shape coming off of it, because I'm going to flatten that. That's going to end up being a wing. And then we're going to add basically the shoulder for the arm, which is just going to be a bead, nothing more. All right, and then I'm going to go to the other side and add a wing. I'm looking straight down the back right now so I can see how symmetrical I'm applying that wing. It's a good vantage point for that. Getting that a little bit stringy there. I'm gonna add the other arm right here. Just the shoulder really, for now. All right, so I'm gonna add 2 white splotches. Oops, kinda got that on the arm there. Add 2 white splotches to the front of those wings. Kind of bubbling that white up. I'm gonna pull some of that off that bubbled up. Maybe drop my flame down a little bit softer. And again, I want more of the white part to be on the bottom of the wing. So I've placed it a little bit lower, and I want the top, that teal part, to show. So I didn't necessarily place that white bead in the middle. Placed it more like on the lower half of it, touching the bottom. So then I'm grabbing and heating this to be the bottom of the wing. So that's just gonna be one part of the bottom. I'm gonna heat this part, kind of pull it off over to the side and down. And that'll be 2 parts of the wing. right here in between the body and the point of that wing, I'm gonna essentially add like a tiny little amount of this color and bridge them two together. So I'm gonna put a little bead, and then I'm gonna try and connect that bead to the wing. Yep. And then I'm gonna heat them up and bridge them. All right, so we've got a real tiny little bridge right there. All right, let's give this thing three. We'll give this thing like three kind of wings coming off. Now we're gonna go back to the top, and since that's bridged, I can heat this whole spot up really well, and it's not gonna move too much on me. All right, so I'm just flattening this other wing, kind of the same deal. All right, I'm gonna pull the inside of that wing down, pretty much like the bottom half of it I'm gonna be pulling down. All right. Stretch another little thing of the wing. Give it basically three little wing areas. All right, so there's number 2. I need to pull some off of that, make it a little bit shorter. All right, and then I'm gonna do the top. Side. All right, got the wings. Now we're basically going to add the arms on, which are just gonna be, we're gonna take that shoulder. We're not really adding arms on, we're gonna take that shoulder that we created, and we're gonna heat that little bead up and just kind of pull it down and away. Same with this side. Kind of pull it down and away. And again, I always grab like kind of underneath the armpit because of the way, if you grab on top of that bead where the shoulder is, it's gonna pull and make it look like that. If you grab underneath the armpit and pull out, it's gonna keep the top nice and angled like a shoulder. Really, that little maneuver makes a huge difference. All right, so now I'm gonna add the head, and I'll go back and add the claws to the feet and the claws of the hands here in a second. So I'm gonna add the head. Which is essentially just a gather that I'm gonna pull down at like the front of it kind of into a snout, like elongated snout. So there's the head. I'm gonna put like a little gather on the front of that head. And then just pull that down into a point, kind of round that point off. That's gonna be your dragon snout, and I can do some sculpting to that here in a second, but I'm gonna go ahead and get the eyes on there. So where's my Knight Rider? Is this? All right, so we're gonna add those eyes, and like I said, to give the eyes a little bit of a structure to them and have like something, I'm gonna add the color that I'm using for the head. I'm gonna add that same color behind the eyes. So I'm basically just kind of putting down like a little flat spot for these eyes to kind of go on. I'm about to go to the left hand again. And then when I add the eyes onto that and build them up, it won't just look like two eyes on the side of a round face. It'll look like two eyes like underneath a brow. So now I'm at the bottom of that little brow line I just created. I'm gonna add a small amount of glass as I can. Just let me just pull a little bit away there because I added a little too much. Okay, now I'm pushing this down into position. I try and make it about a teardrop shape if I can. Teardrop shape ends up making a pretty good eye shape. But you really want it to be like a dash, like a dashed line. It's a little harder or easier said than done on this level. So if you're just starting out and you're trying to make that teardrop or that dash line shape and you can't get it quite a dash line, go ahead and just start with a teardrop shape and maneuver from there and work around it from there and start that as like a learning point. All right, so got that set up. So now, instead on this one, I made 2 black teardrop shapes essentially. And instead of completely covering the eye in white, I'm gonna utilize the black as, that I've already put down as part of the iris and pupil. So what I'm gonna do is make like a really tiny L shape on that fatter portion of the eye. The narrower part of the eye is more towards the front of the face. The fatter portion is back here towards the back. I'm gonna do like a little like crescent moon of white on that back portion of the eye, and it's gonna make the front of the eye, it's gonna make it look like the white of the eye, and the front part will look like the iris. And this one is tricky. You gotta get real small flame for this. I don't wanna be going too slow on this torch. It's another thing with these GTTs. If you have a GTT and you're running a slow flame, you're gonna damage the torch. So try not to run too slow of a flame, but you definitely don't want too much pressure. All right, so we're gonna go like just a little hook. See how I did that? I started and made just like a little worm kind of shape. Maybe even too much. I'm gonna add a little bit of a bead right there, yeah. Boom, boom. And so now, once that cools, maybe not even enough. Yeah, I think I need a little bit more of a white to that eye. So I'm just gonna add a little bit more. You add more on top of the color you've applied, and it'll just kind of puddle the rest of it out and push it out further. So now you can kind of see how that eye looks. It looks like he's looking forward. You can see the black of that eye. Now what I'm gonna do to make the black of that eye look a little bit more rounded, since I've added that white and it doesn't look perfectly round, it just looks like a little like black triangle. I'm gonna add another black dot right at the edge of where I applied that white. So now that is gonna give me a really nice defined kind of white of the eye. It looks a lot more, it looks like you have like a little bit of the white of the eye and then a black, you know, a round black image inside of it. And then I'm gonna basically do a tiny white dot kind of up in the upper corner of where I just did that. And that tiny white dot is to kind of like, kind of in a way, give a little bit more life to the eye. It shows like a reflection of light, and that reflection of light is really necessary to have there at all times, because it's not like an actual, you're not constructing this eye like an actual human eye to where the light is gonna lens and reflect and see those like spots in it. You need to create that natural kind of little reflection of light off of your eye back into the viewer's eyes. You need to create that, so I just do a little tiny white dot right up in the corner. Now that's cooled down, you should be able to see it. And you know, right now you're seeing that little white dot I'm talking about as a reflection of light, but you can really see in the top corner of the eye how I've added my own little reflection dot. And that just, it's kind of an anime trick. If you watch a lot of anime or look at anime, it pretty much, it's a trick that almost all of them do. If they want somebody to have really big black dead eyes, then they will choose to leave out that reflection of light. And ideally I could recreate that by just having the black glass and letting light reflect off of it, but it doesn't necessarily work that way all the time, depending on the room you're in and the lighting. And now I'm gonna give this eye a little bit of a hood so it doesn't look like it's like just wide-eyed. And I want this to kind of, this is a dragon, so he's gonna be a little mean. I'm gonna give him that kind of mean expression I was showing you earlier, where you really give that hood like a sharp angle and give that eye some expression. Maybe add a little bit more of a hood to it. Might not have went far enough. And I'm really just hooking that little stringer all the way around the eye and then melting it in to where it still is standing up and has some prominence to it, but melting it in nice and happily as far as, you know, not cutting corners on how far I melted in. Let's go ahead and do this other eye. I've already got the black down, so I'm just gonna need to add a little bit of the white to the back of it. Again, you're not covering the eye with white, you're covering just the back to make the white of the eye, which is gonna make the front part kind of triangular, so you'll have to go back, like we'll do here in a second, and make the black part round again, which just consists of adding a bead of glass right there along the border between the white you just added and the black of the eye that was already laid down. And then you want to push that kind of flat so it doesn't spread out too much. You want to give it that little dot I was telling you about. This eye turned out a little bit better too. Usually it's the second one that turns out better than the first one, just because the little practice move beforehand. All right, this is a weird one. I really want to go left-handed with that, but I think I'm just gonna, yeah, I'm gonna do left-handed. So a lot of times you'll see me go left-handed just to be able to see the rest of the face. If this is in my left hand right now and I'm trying to work on it, I'm gonna be looking at the back of the head trying to add this eyebrow, and I wanna be looking at the face so I know I get it on correctly. So I'm just gonna apply it left-handed and hope for the best. All right, got it on there. Now that it's on at least as evenly as I would need it to be, I'm gonna try and get it all tacked down with my dominant hand. If you're extremely unskilled with your left hand, then you might want to work on that as far as being a glass blower anyways, because it is definitely good to get your left and right hand into unison, whether it means you're spinning the glass or just doing two different things at once. Carefully as I can, you'll see me kind of flash and pull off, flash and pull off. I'm literally trying to melt that glass down a micrometer at a time, not a millimeter, literally a micrometer. Like if I start to see it move a little bit, I take it off, and then I heat it up and let it move a little bit more, and then I take it off. That just keeps it as controlled as possible. You're just teeter-tottering that line of as soon as you take that flame away, it is no longer moving. And that is a crucial thing to be able to do. You know, you really can't have your glass moving around too much on you after you take it out of the flame. This dragon, we're gonna give like a little, maybe like kind of 2 horns in the back. All right, we're gonna do this 1 horn, pull it out, do another horn. I need to angle it a little bit better. Oh yeah, nice. So we're gonna kind of kick the feet in a little bit inwards. And that's gonna be the, you know, there's just gonna be two taloned feet. We're gonna add one to the outside here. And then we'll melt that in and kind of pull that forward. Boom, and now you've got 2 little feet, or 2 little toes. Same thing on this one. I'm gonna kind of pull this guy inwards, make him almost pigeon-toed looking. And then I'm gonna add a bead right here, kind of onto the side. Try and really hit it from that angle so that the side of the foot melts in more flushly and flatly and leaves the other side of that bead more at an angle with the glass. So that way it creates that kind of pointed toe effect. I might need to even add just a little bit more and pull that down. There we go. Okay, so now he's got 2 toes, and we're gonna add probably just 2 claws to him too. That sounds like a winning combo. So he's gonna be kind of in a more like flexing stance position. I'm gonna add a little bit to color to this one. And then I'm going to add a little bead to the outside of the kind of wrist area, so to speak. Melt that bead in and pull it out into a claw. Pull that other side kind of more back down again since it got a little smoothed over. Same thing on this side. Add that bead on, melt it in, pull it out. Now, this is the last step. Well, not the last step because I gotta pull the tail off. But I'm gonna add little kind of toenails essentially to the end of each of those toes. And it's just gonna be real small amount of white. And you just dab it on the end like that. Just get a little bit, go down each toe. And then you're gonna go back in, kind of feather your flame on these little whites because they like to bubble if you don't. Feather that flame or keep it fairly far out of the flame. All right, now that I've got those melted in, now if you want to bring them to a point, you let them cool a little bit and just pull to a point. And you actually want to go kind of like from the farthest one in on this because you're gonna hit the closest one in the flame more often than you're gonna hit the furthest one, which is almost counterintuitive to what you'd think, because usually when I'm doing the process, I'm going here and rotating away from the flame, but on these claws, it's kind of the opposite. Oop. There we go. Okay, little baby claws. I'm gonna add little baby claws to the hands. Melt those in. Pull it down a little bit. All right. Flash these in the heat, and I'm gonna finish the tail off. Probably just grab up to like a wing. Maybe his head. It's a little awkward. We're gonna just grab right there. And this tail, I'm actually gonna finish off kind of like swooping down to foot level to where he'll stand up. So I had it kind of angled up and arching back away from him. And now I'm gonna have it kind of come forward and down and wrap back down around to where when he stands upright. Stands up nice. Probably just, if I want to be picky, angle that tail down just a little bit more, like have it drop down a little bit lower. Just because I don't necessarily want him leaning back. I want him leaning, or I want it looking like he's standing straight up. So I'm gonna Kevlar pad. It'll save you a lot of drops when working with small sculptural shit. I don't know how well it's gonna save big. If you're working on big pieces and drops on that pad, and they're hot, it's gonna leave some like residue behind, and you're gonna be able to notice that it was